Professor Carol Samson, the author of this book, once pointed me towards a section of Wendell Berry's book, The Gift of Good Land. Wendell Berry is a Kentucky writer and environmental activist who's probably best known for this Solving for Pattern piece that appears in Chapter 9 of the book. Here we have taken it and adapted it for entrepreneurs and their ventures. Given that the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer, and that the customer is made and kept by providing a solution for their needs, Wendell Berry gives us guidelines to remind us what a good solution is. Number 1. A good solution accepts given limits, using, insofar as possible, what is at hand. As the tennis great Arthur Ashe once said, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. The further fetched the solution, the less it should be trusted. Berry points out that a farm or business can be too small. It is nevertheless true that enlarging scale can be a deceptive solution. It solves one problem by acquiring another, or several others. Number 2. A good solution accepts the limitations of discipline. Stay focused and look for fundamental solutions to the fundamental problems. Berry says that agricultural solutions should receive solutions that are agricultural, not technological or economic. In that respect, no amount of downloaded apps will make up for a bad harvest. Number 3. A good solution improves the balances, symmetries, or harmonies within a pattern. It is a qualitative solution rather than enlarging or complicating some part of the pattern at the expense or neglect of the rest. In other words, an overcomplicated solution isn't a solution. Think fractal, and the first step is to identify correctly the pattern that is appearing. Number 4. A good solution solves more than one problem, and it doesn't make new problems. Number 5. A good solution will satisfy a wide range of criteria. It will be good in all respects. Number 6. Berry writes that a good solution embodies a clear distinction between biological order and mechanical order. In his case, between farming and industry. Farmers who fail to make this distinction are ideal customers of the equipment companies. But they often fail to understand that the real strength of a farm is in the soil. Remember, this was originally published in 1981, but it serves again as another warning to entrepreneurs to stick to the fundamental solution that they are offering to their customers and not to wander off track looking for technology to solve everything. It is but a tool. Number 7. Good solutions have wide margins so that the failure of one solution doesn't imply the impossibility of another. Industry tends to put its eggs into fewer and fewer baskets and to make going for broke its only way of going. But even so, to offer one product should not make it completely impossible to keep other options alive. And to have a lot of power should not make it impossible to use only a little. Be economic. Number 8. A good solution always answers the question, how much is enough? Industrial solutions have always rested on the assumption that enough is all you can get. The theory of constraints, etc. But in the long run, this can destroy industries, as it destroys nature and culture. The good health of an enterprise implies a limit of scale, because it implies a limit of attention, and because such a limit is invariably implied by any pattern. You destroy a square, for example, by enlarging one angle and lengthening one side. You can imagine what would happen if one industry decided to consume all available amounts of one particular resource, leaving none for any other industry who might have also needed that input. And in any sort of work, there is a point past which more quantity necessarily means less quality. Maybe you could ask whether information asymmetries, in this case a language and a great firewall barrier, causes David Ricardo's gains from trade to go too far. Factories, particularly in East China, facing what they perceive to be a never-ending upward demand curve, never stopped to actually research what the market capacity could be. It's a limit of attention. Number 9. A good solution should be cheap, and it should not enrich one person by the distress or impoverishment of another. In business, so-called inputs are, from a different point of view, outputs. We are all part of an ecosystem, and it behoves people to think of that before engaging in price gouging. Number 10. Good solutions exist only in proof and are not to be expected from some absentee owners or absentee experts. Problems must be solved in work and in place, with particular knowledge, fidelity, and care by people who will suffer the consequences of their mistakes. There is no theoretical or ideal practice. Practical advice or direction from people who have no practice may have some value, but its value is questionable and is limited. In other words, the best advice is from those who have faced the problems before, those who have had skin in the game, and with a holistic approach. Number 11. An organic business, properly speaking, is not one that uses certain methods and substances and avoids others. It is a business whose structure is formed in imitation of the structure of a natural system. It has the integrity, the independence, and the benign dependence of an organism. The entity concept, pure and simple. Once the management staff and enterprise can be understood as a single organism, and once it is understood that the question of the endurance of this organism is a question about the sufficiency and integrity of a pattern, recognize your pattern. Number 12. In an organism, what is good for one part is good for another. Berry points out that what is good for the mind is good for the body. What's good for the arm is good for the heart. We know that sometimes a part must be sacrificed for the whole. A life may be saved by the amputation of an arm, but we also know that such remedies are desperate, irreversible, and destructive. It is impossible to remove the body by amputation, and such remedies do not imply a safe logic. As tendencies, they are fatal. You can't save your arm by the sacrifice of your life. Berry's farm example was that if we understood the farm as an organism, we see that it's impossible to sacrifice the health of the soil to improve the health of the plants, or to sacrifice the health of the plants to improve the health of animals, or to sacrifice the health of animals to improve the health of people. In a biological pattern, as in the pattern of a community, the exploitative means and motives of industrial economics are immediately destructive and ultimately suicidal. Number 13. It is the nature of any organic pattern to be contained within a larger one, and so a good solution in one pattern preserves the integrity of the pattern that contains it. Think triple bottom line. In Wendell Berry's agricultural example, a good solution wouldn't pollute or erode a watershed. What is good for the water is good for the ground. What's good for the ground is good for the plants. What's good for the plants is good for the animals. What's good for the animals is good for the people. What's good for the people is good for the air. What's good for the air is good for the water. And vice versa. Number 14. A good solution, then, must be in harmony with good character, cultural value, and moral law. Berry calls for restraint. For us, now, above all, the ability to accept and live within limits, to resist changes that are merely novel or fashionable, to resist greed and pride, to resist the temptation to solve problems by ignoring them, accepting them as trade-offs, or bequeathing them to posterity. We're only starting.